I was there when the term experimental film was coined. It was coined in the 50s in San Francisco by a reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle for the specific purpose of insulting independent filmmakers. And I mean, in the process of insulting them, he also managed to insult scientists and the whole scientific process as well, because what he wrote was, these people are not really making films, they are just experimenting. Which showed a contempt for the very noble prospect of experimentation, and a completely wrong bias toward what it is I and my contemporaries and some of the older people like Peterson and Sidney Peterson and James Broughton and Maya Deren, of course, were actually doing, in which they were working as normal artists, and they were suddenly tabbed experimentalists. And then a lot of them picked that up like humans will do, like damn Yankee gets picked up and becomes a flag that you wave and say, yes, I'm a damn Yankee Doodle going to town. And so that tab got laid there. Then there was, previous to it, Avant-Garde, which was a French label that didn't really have much of anything to do with what the American independent filmmakers were doing, or for that matter, what Peter Gabelke was doing in Austria. But that label stuck because for many years at the Museum of Modern Art, the only distinction from linear filmmaking, that is narrative dramatic filmmaking, that existed were a few works by out of Paris from the early 20s. Man Ray, Dali, Buñuel, René Clair, Léger, those people, including Duchamp, made some films. So that was what people meant by avant-garde, and that meant, and therefore that term was around. Then later came the term underground. This was launched because of the deliberate publicity campaigns of Andy Warhol and company and Factory. It was all part of a highly bankrolled Edie Sedgwick shtick, which finally came to the Velvet Underground and was the epitome, I guess, of its world fame. And so everyone was called an undergrounder. I didn't feel related to that at all, as I was as distant as you could possibly be from Andy Warhol's scene, Velvet or otherwise. And I felt like a living room man, which is mostly where I was photographing when I was home, or more deeply that I was pursuing possibilities of moving visual thinking, thought, the mind's eye, what the mind's eye is capable of, whatever my external subject matter. And this had nothing to do with most of the polemics of the 60s, underground or otherwise designated. To whatever extent that I was enabled, I mean, I was trying to express the streamings of my mind, the visual coherences that I could arrive at as free from language, symbol, or the trappings of past modes of thinking as possible. If all the arts aspire to music, as Walter Pater put it, then there can surely be a visual music for the eyes. And if there is, just as there is a physiological ground for our orchestral music, our quartets, and very singing itself within the song of the nervous system and the beating of the heart inside a human physiologically, the nerves in their whinings, all in tone rows. There's also a corollary in moving visual thinking for a grounds for music to be derived, and that's what I see across my whole life. I've moved more and more toward discovering. The closest sense I have of it is when I am working with moving visual thinking, the streamings of light within the body itself, which bring me things that are unnameable, and are, in that sense, they are at one, and they are feeling a real ground of everything that is my being, and at the same time they are feeling like a large gift from some elsewhere that only is only doesn't even interact much with the earth, but is only affected by it in some dance, quite removed and quite and as removed as to make it fit for an aesthetic experience. There are from time to time many examples of people near the ends of their lives managing something in complete, not contempt, but indifference to the career that they might otherwise be having in the world. And I kind of have a hope that is again going to be given to me, as it was when I made the songs first, when there was no place to show 8mm film publicly whatsoever. There was no one else working with it, or it conceivably would. It was a pure act of making that was contained within the act of the making itself. I mean, and I have said, even of late, about my hand painting, that really what I'm trying to achieve, for all of however I might and most honestly talk about it, within the possibilities of the honesty of language, I really just want to leave something like a snail's trail in the moonlight.